Okay. All right. Sorry, had to make sure it was working. All right. So today we're going to talk about one of the biggest themes in Lord of the Rings. I was like, how have we not talked about it yet? It would almost be sacrilegious or whatever you want to call it if we didn't. And that is the idea of friendship, because I think that is because we have one of the best friendships in cinema, literature, etc. period, in Frodo and Sam. But we also have some other great friendships, but I don't know. But yeah, so it's just awesome. I love we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah. There's lots of friendships on display, but lots of layers of friendship too. So I mean, yes, you have Frodo and Sam, but you got Merry and Pippin. You have Gandalf and Bilbo even. Mm-hmm. The friendship that exists there, and then of course, I think it's a little different than it actually is written, but the way that Peter Jackson portrays friendship between Legolas and Gimli is one of the most. It's like the comic relief of the series. It's again, it's probably not really how it's portrayed in the books, but it's I like it.
It adds a lot.
It does.
And then it's just awesome too. I love and then I don't think it's on display as much. I mean, it's there obviously, but I think I always said the one friendship I wish they would have spent more time on is the friendship between Aragorn and Legolas, because that gets a little bit of attention, and I think it's because they had been friends the longest, it appears, because I think they knew each other when they were, I don't know when they met, but they knew each other from before. And I was thinking about it today. I'm like, so I think obviously the hobbits knew each other, and I think Gandalf knew pretty much everybody, but I think Aragorn and Legolas, were they the only ones that were friends previous to that, except for the hobbits?
I'm not sure, actually.
Because they obviously knew each other.
Yeah. But, some of that stuff, I think when you take it to cinema, it just gets lost, because you have other things you have to focus on. You have other plot points you have to drive along, and some of the character developments, some of the friendships get a little bit tossed aside. But
I think it's more in the extended. That's what somebody else told me. One of our friends told me, like, oh, you should watch the extended. I think you see it more.
Yeah, and I think I've only seen one of the extended, actually. So, but what is kind of your favorite component, let's say, of Frodo and Sam's friendship, since they're kind of the hallmark friendship in the series?
Yeah, oh goodness, there's so much about it. I think, I know we've talked a lot about Sam's just, we talked about true grit, or what is the line, you've got a lot of stuff, kid, or whatever. Right. And just his, like, unwavering loyalty, unwavering commitment to Frodo. We see that constantly, whether it's like, I don't know, I think was he eavesdropping outside the window? I haven't been dropping no eaves. Or was he doing that because he was curious, or just because he was like genuinely concerned about Frodo? I guess we don't really see that.
We don't know, because that's where you first meet Sam, and you're not let in on is he just concerned for his buddy? No, I don't think so. In fact, I don't know that there is a deep friendship between the two of them before they set off on their quest. In fact, I don't think there is. I think they live in the same town, but they're just kind of casual.
They knew each other. Like
many people in Fawcett, I might know who they are, I might see them frequently. But are we friends? I don't know. When do you cross that threshold?
Yeah.
Some of my best friends are the tellers at Pellywickies, because I'm there like a dozen times a week, no joke. And I'm like striking up these mini conversations. It's like you carry on this mini conversation for months at a time, But yeah, I don't think the two of them were real solid friends until the quest brings them together. Have you ever had a friendship like that you're brought together by sort of a common quest, if you will?
I mean, yeah, I guess when I was in the school I was in for 2 years, I mean, we didn't really know each other at all. Well, the one guy that I had literally no interaction with before the first day of school, I mean, to this day, is a really good friend of mine. So that kind of threw us together, and it's the ones that I knew a little bit before that I had basically no contact with.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, how that can go flip-flop in your mind. I mean, kind of the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he was more like I think we were more like Merry and Pippin. We bickered and we fought. Or Legolas and Gimli. I don't know which one it would be, but we were the bickerers.
Lots of love, but you loved ribbing each other.
Yeah.
It's interesting how... I know. Very well.
Yeah, I think we have the Legolas Gimli relationship going on. No, I'm kidding.
Indeed. It is funny what brings people together as friends. Oftentimes, it's just proximity,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or it's a common, like, you probably have friendships in your life right now, for instance, through work, that
Mm-hmm.
you would never be brought together with these certain people, but then when you are, you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I really appreciate these things about them.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's the other way around. It's like, oh, these things drive me nuts. You know, but
Sometimes it can both be about the same person.
it can often be the same
Like,
person. So,
oh my goodness, I appreciate you so much, but this little thing that you do, I just want to like. Sometimes I just want to bop your head, bop you in the face.
yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, some of my best friends in life have been, you know, people who Matt Flaherty, whose dad was here as our pastor.
Mm-hmm.
That brought us together. Zach Lean, my classmate, you know, that's kind of a natural one to to bring you into the same place at the same time for years at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Other times, yeah, the quest of teaching abroad brought us into friendship with lots of people we never would have met.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool. But you know, like C.S. Lewis in The Four Loves says, the moment of friendship begins when two people, how does he say that, are like,
I've not read
what?
that book.
You too? You know, like you realize that there's a common kinship sometimes over a certain obsession, interest, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, oh, this is a person that we have a, like Anne of Green Gables calls it, we are kindred spirits.
Mm-hmm.
We have a connection over shared values, shared interests. So anyway, lots of that in the books.
Well, I know we kind of hit it off. I mean, I think what we really bonded over. I mean, this granted, and I think we spent a lot of youth trips talking about it. There was C.S. Lewis, Adventures in Odyssey, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
some
similar
upbringing pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, or like
sure.
there's somebody like our youth pastor Alyssa. We bonded over. Really? You did that growing up too? I think our households were so similar growing up.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it can just be like, you know, like, and this is what we're doing as adults, and you know, we kind of go, when you grow up similar, you might go through a similar experience as adults, trying to find your footing in the world.
Right, and then of course there's the greatest of all kinships that people can have, and that is the kinship of one Christian with another Christian. You know, unified, brought together in spirit by the Holy Spirit. You know, I remember a couple years ago we were down at the what was it called, Seavers Fall Festival in the South Cities, and we were in this aviary. You walk through the screen door and there's all these parakeets everywhere, like hundreds of them, and they'll just fly up and land on your arm and stuff. It was pretty fun.
Where was that in the?
This is in like south of Chaska, kind of by Jordan, Minnesota, way south.
Okay.
Southwest of the Twin Cities area, and they have this huge fall festival, pumpkins and corn and mazes and whatever, all this stuff. But we spent our most time in this aviary, just hanging out with these birds. And the girl that was working in there, we walk in and we're sort of interacting with each other, and it must have been a good day because, as a family, I mean, because she walks up and she's like, "Are you guys Christians?" And I'm like, well, I'm glad you didn't catch us on another day when other things were going on, you know, and tempers were flaring or whatever. But something, I mean, there was nothing. We weren't talking about anything. There was just, she was like, she felt the connection in the spirit, you know, and that happens every once in a while. You, without even talking about anything God-related with somebody, sometimes you're like, you're a believer, aren't you? You know, and that's a great joy to have that connection with somebody. So anyway, getting a little ways off of Lord of the Rings here, maybe, but Frodo and Sam are kind of brought together by happenstance. Plus, you know, I mean, they live in the same town, whatever. But the relationship is so deep that is forged. One of my favorite moments in the movie, in the first movie, is when, I think this is just brilliantly done, when Frodo is trying to sneak off. Yeah. You know, he's trying to get into his coracle, he's trying to get into his canoe and paddle away. And Sam's running down into the river, and Frodo's like, "I have to go alone, Sam." And he's like, "Sure you do, and I'm coming with you," or whatever he says, you know. I mean, it's,
I know.
It's just brilliant. And it's that level of devotion, that level of loyalty and friendship is not that common.
Yeah, well, I think there's one line I love that line too. And one line I love earlier is at the Council of Elrond or the Council in Rivendell, where Frodo says, "I'm going to take the ring," and then I think all the non-little people or whatever he wants, to make it short, have said, well, and then Gimli too have said they've all agreed to go or whatever, and Sam kind of like. Once again, he's hiding, lurking, dropping eaves or whatever. And
dropping some more eaves, are you saying?
And he pops out and says, "Hey, Mr. Frodo's not going anywhere without me." And then Elrond, played fantastically by Hugo Weaving, delivers this sarcastic quip. "No, it seems as if hardly possible to separate you. Even when he is summoned to a secret council and you are not." Or however he says it. It's like...
Yeah, exactly.
I think I heard someone say, yeah, Hugo Weaving mastered the art of the eyebrow or something like that. Or he can act with his face really well.
Yeah, no, he does. He does really well. And of course you see that in The Matrix as well, which I don't know if you've seen that movie. But,
no, I haven't. I want to.
Mr. Anderson. He was famous for that one role.
Does he play Agent Smith? He doesn't play Mr. Anderson, though.
No, Mr. Anderson is Keanu Reeves, but
that's his line that he says all the time.
Yeah, but that's his Mr. Anderson. And it's just this like creepy robotic. Anyway, so yeah, and they're not really trying all that hard, are they? Having a secret council out in the open air, with
with
shrubberies around and stuff.
Yeah, but they're in Rivendell, which is kind of a hidden place. Anyway,
yeah,
so that was
therein is the point again that Sam's fierce loyalty to Frodo carries all the way through, even to the point where Frodo says, "Go, I am choosing," his mind is being corrupted by this ring, "I'm choosing Gollum, the two of us are going in, you get out of here," and he's like, "Okay, I'll get out of here," and then partway down he's like, "Wait a minute, no."
He finds the lambus bread or whatever, so he figured out that there'd been...
Right, that there really was treachery, of course.
Yeah.
As he knew all along. He has, as we've spoken of before, this sense about Gollum that as much as Gollum might have this split personality, and the one personality comes out and he's like, "Hey, I'm helpful, I'm good, I'm actually not that bad." It's really the sin, the other personality, the what we would call the sinful or evil side of him that wins out. Sam knows this. He feels this all the way along. But anyway... well,
it kind of goes right back to what I had said. I think the first session we did on talking about Lord of the Rings, I said, the part that always gives me goosebumps is when Elrond is like... Well, he's retelling to Gandalf about the Isildur finding the ring or whatever, and he says... In that line where he says, "Cast it into the fire!" And Isildur says no and walks away. It's like, how often do we have those people in our lives that are like, just get rid of it, stop it, just don't. And then, of course, we see that scene mirrored at the very end of the Return of the King when Frodo is contemplating throwing the ring in and Sam is just there weeping, just throw it in, what are you waiting for? One of the only scenes that my mom got really caught up in the whole trilogy, by the way. She was like, just throw it, just throw it. He was like, yeah, it gets to me.
Yeah, it's just so, I feel like I am in a similar place right now with several people in my life. Standing, watching them, I guess it's not really the same, but there are so many people that I've had friendships with who are really caught up in evil stuff now. They don't see it as evil. They don't think it's evil. They in fact they think it's very good. And I'm going, if you don't cast this stuff out of your life, you will be forever changed. You will be forever embracing of things that are so anti God's plan for you, anti God's plan for the world, and yet they're just like, how can you not? How can you be so? They're going to me, how can you be so blind? And I'm going to them, how can you be so blind? And it's just, it's, the devil is cunning, man. He's deceptive. He works on us in a myriad of ways, and we often are, as the word says, lacking in self-control, like a city without walls. Well, what is a city without walls back in the day? It's a city that can be attacked and conquered super easily. It's sitting ducks, and I feel that we are often sitting ducks. But it's certainly helpful to have a Sam in our lives who's like, throw it in the fire. Do you know what you're messing with here? You're messing with hell itself. So,
yeah.
You got people like that?
Well, yeah, you and Christy.
I mean, I suppose.
I mean, I literally
that is some of how we all function.
Well, I literally just wrote a sappy Facebook post. Well, backstory. To the audience, I had the crazy idea. Oh, I should throw a 25th wedding anniversary for my parents and make it a surprise. And I literally had the thought, oh my gosh, I can't do that because I don't have siblings. But then I'm like, oh yeah, wait, I have the most amazing friends that are very much like siblings to me. And so I wrote it when I wrote my appreciation post. Oh my goodness, I'm so thankful. I actually used a line. I said I said Kate wouldn't have gotten far without Seth and Christy, because it's like, I'm seriously like, yeah, I've had, you aren't like trekking into Mordor, but truly being the most amazing friends I could ask for. So anyway, yeah, there's the sappy moment of the day.
Maybe that was too much compliment fishing on my part. That wasn't what I was after. However, every one of us needs a person in our life who, like I was talking about this in a sermon a while ago, and I apologize that I often reference things that way, but you got to have a nope friend in your life, who's like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope. That's not good for you. That relationship, not good for you. That decision, that financial decision, not good for you. That job ain't good for you. You talking this way about somebody, not good for you. You know.
You need the friends that can call you out on.
Who can call you out. And most people don't give somebody else permission to do that. If somebody wants to do that to them, they don't see it as a deep level of friendship and respect, which is what it is. I respect you enough not to allow you to just have your head over here in the pig trough, slandering somebody or slamming somebody, gossiping about somebody. And, most people, when they're challenged like that, they're like, oh, I guess we're going to create a little distance here because I don't like having my hand slapped. Naughty, you shouldn't talk that way. But we need it because we act like children so often. And human nature, there's something about human nature that finds slamming other people one of the most delicious pastimes out there. And I'm saying it resides in my heart.
Oh.
And I need somebody to be like, stop talking about people that way, because it's not healthy for you or for anybody else. I'm talking about this Sunday, slander and gossip. The Bible, I mean, you ever look at the lists of where gossip occurs? Like, it's always in a list of Paul, like, those who partake in adultery and homosexuality and envy and murder and gossip, and I'm like,
oops.
These are all in one list. It happens several times, and I'll point a few of those out this Sunday. It's a serious deal. And to not have a friend who's like, whoosh, hey, dummy, clean up your mouth, that's a problem. And most of us don't give permission to anybody to do that.
Yeah.
We get all huffy. Somebody's like, you shouldn't be talking about somebody that way, and we're like, oh, was it?
But I mean, I don't know. Is it okay to have a friend that you can vent to for a few seconds? Say, I just need to vent for about 30 seconds, and then I'll feel better.
I think, here's what I think. I think the friend should always be the same one. Or the parents, maybe, in your case. Maybe that person's your mom. It should be the same person. For me, it's Christy. If I have to get something off my chest, whatever, she's the one. And then it just needs to stay there. You don't need to go around proselytizing about how crappy somebody is, and we're good at doing that.
Yeah.
Human beings are so good at doing that. Like, everybody, come over to my side. Ha ha, look at that idiot over there. I mean, we're too good at that. So, yes, if you have a friend that you vent to, a parent, whatever. Spouse, I think it's okay, but make sure it's the same person. And, make sure that it's tempered with lots of good stuff that you talk about.
Yeah, even just say, look, I just need to vent for a few seconds or something like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't like this person, but they really ticked me off today.
Sure. That's fine.
Or like, look, I'm not saying I don't like this coworker, but it really annoys me when they do X, Y, or Z, and they don't listen when I tell them to do something.
Yeah, so the questions that you got to ask yourself are, if I'm going beyond my one person or whatever, why? Why? Why do I feel it's so necessary to slander this person? And secondly, what is really the motive of my heart? because the motive of the heart behind gossip has nothing to do with that person's good. You know? So, as I prepare to preach on gossip, there have been a couple times this week where I've had to come back to a conversation and say, by the way, that was wrong of me, and here's some good things about this person, and let's pray for them. Because the motive of my heart is not, I love them and I want what's good for them, and this frustrates me, and will you pray with me about that? That's rarely how we talk about people. It's almost always like, old, dimwit O'Malley was doing this today, and what a moron there, and this is how I do life, and it's so superior.
Well, I mean, I was told, I don't know, not long after I started working at my job, my bosses apparently had just laid down the law to everybody of like several years ago. No, if you're having a serious problem, like there's some harassment going on, you come to us about that. If you're just having your little fights, which it's a whole bunch of women working, that happens a lot, you work it out. You're adults. You don't need to come to us crying when you're little, she made me mad.
Tattling on people,
So she's like, no, you work it out. You work out your little spats all by yourselves, and if there's a serious problem, then you can come to us. But as far as little fights that you have going on, we don't want to get involved in that. Thank you very much. We can't play favorites.
If you're going to keep coming to us, we're just going to hand some diapers and wet wipes across the counter, and you can clean up your own mess, I mean, it'd be kind of funny, like if you had just if somebody was whining to you, and you just push a thing of Pampers across the counter, that'd be kind of a brilliant way of this is dumb, it's childish, and you need to figure it out.
Yeah, like some people are just babies.
Yeah, so maybe I should get that around here, like a little stock set of Huggies or something. Yeah,
it's been a long
whining.
It's been a long week. I'm very susceptible to laughing today. Don't do it.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. Laughter is good medicine, right?
Anyway, but yeah.
So back to friendship.
Yes.
So yeah, there's the Sam-Frodo friendship. There's the just unusualness of Sam's loyalty. You don't get friends like that very often. And sometimes friendships break down late in the game. I mean, I can think of somebody in my life who they've had a couple of friendships for 30 years, and then all of a sudden they deteriorate and break down, and there's no more friendship. And that's a sorrow. But to have friendships like Samwise Gamgee, to have friends like that, that's a gift. It's an amazing gift. So you had brought up before we started filming the relationship between Aragorn and Boromir, which really isn't much of a relationship, but absolutely love. It's one of the most brilliant parts in the whole cinematic series when Boromir is dying, and that final moment they have between, the heir to the throne of Gondor, who's really not the heir to the throne of Gondor, because his dad has usurped the throne.
Well, he was given it legal. He was
legally, yeah. So I mean, he's sort of
with the understanding that as soon as the king comes in, he'll step up.
He's like the underling, right? He's the Jonathan, if you will.
Well,
he's really like Jonathan to David.
Oh, right. Boromir's.
I mean, his dad is the rightful king, but he's not, because he's been unfaithful, and God has removed the blessing from that kingship, and so you have this Boromir / Jonathan kind of guy, and you have Aragorn / David, who's they have this moment, and I just, it's so powerful when he I would have, what does he say? I would have followed you,
my brother, my captain, my king, or whatever. And someone had
phenomenal,
really who was really looking into that line that said, what does he say? I would follow you, my brother, because I don't know what it is, but I don't know. But he was saying, when he says my captain and my king, he was essentially signing over what he had.
Right.
And one thing that's interesting too, you talk about how his dad was like the underling or whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody had pointed out that they're that when they go into the throne room, when Gandalf and Pippin go in and meet Denethor or whatever. He's not actually sitting in the throne. He's sitting in the steward's chair, and then there's a higher throne up behind him. So he never fully sat on the throne, but he still says the throne of Gondor is mine, or whatever.
Yeah, right.
So
he's sitting at. Is he sitting at that little table?
No.
Where he's just sloppily eating his food? Or no, I should go back and look at that scene, because
he's just sitting.
There's like a main throne and a secondary throne?
There's like a white throne because, you know, it's the white city or whatever, sitting like several steps up.
Sure.
And then he's sitting like just down in like a...
And frankly, I think it's a great metaphor for how we get the wrong stuff in control of our life, too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's like a spiritual metaphor all the way. Like, who's sitting on the throne of your heart? You know, we talk about that kind of stuff, Christianese kind of stuff. And brought to you by Caribou.
Said the right, yay!
You know, we do this. We get usurpers. We get thoughts. We get priorities that are not godly in control of our lives. How do so many of my friends get deceived, get pulled away? They do this. They give place in their life. They give power in their life to the wrong things. So anyway, yeah. But I hadn't actually thought about the Saul, Jonathan, David sort of connection.
I think I was the one who pointed it out or something like that.
I haven't thought about that too much, but yeah, that's an apt metaphor.
Yeah, well, I think I thought about it a little bit, and then I just kind of used it because I kind of was the spur of the moment trying to explain to my parents watching it with them, and there's the scene like at Lothlorien, or is that where the Gladriel is? Is it Lothlorien?
You would know better than I would. The woods of Lothlorien?
Yeah, that one.
It sounds right.
Yeah, where they're talking, where Aragorn and Boromir are kind of starting to become friends a little bit, because there's a little, you know, the animosity is kind of dissipating a little bit or whatever. And I was trying to explain to my parents, like, the dynamic, and I said, well, just think of David and Jonathan, how they were friends despite and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I don't know if that was intentional on Tolkien's part, but I just think that's an interesting dynamic or interesting parallel. And then but yeah, I do love that whole Boromir's death. It's one of the best, I would say, it's one of the best scenes in the trilogy too.
It's wonderful. I don't know if Tolkien intended that either, but what I've learned about Tolkien, and I don't know much, I'm no super fan. I'm not like a Silmarillion reading super fan, but is that a lot more about Tolkien is intentional than we probably even know. He was very methodical. So I think, you know, he thought these plot points out, and I don't think when we are like, oh, that's interesting, he probably already is 5 steps ahead of us because he was so meticulous. But yeah.
Well, I mean, one thing I think is so interesting about the friendship of Frodo and Sam, I see a lot of parallels with that to the real life friendship of Lewis and Tolkien too. In some ways, like how, I was talking to a friend of mine about how I said how people are like, well, Sam is the true hero of the Lord of the Rings. Frodo more so than Frodo. Frodo's kind of like the third, like the lower, like if they were talking about who's the main character, he's like the least main of the main characters or whatever, whatever they were talking about. But I don't remember. And she said, well, actually, you talk about Frodo needing Sam. I think Sam needed Frodo too, because I don't think Sam could have carried the ring. I think it would have destroyed him even more so than Frodo, just because he was so sweet or whatever.
So if you think of Tolkien as Frodo, carrying this burden of writing this trilogy, then you have Lewis, who's there, like, come on, let's do it. Let's keep going. Next step, next mile.
And and then you put also Lewis needed Tolkien for his writing too, because I mean, I don't think not his writing itself, but his Christian faith, which I mean, I will always stand by this, that if it wasn't for their friendship, I don't think we would have. Well, I mean, sorry, excuse me. I'll backtrack for a second. I wrote a paper in high school about the Inklings and these, you know, how many guys were in the group? It wasn't 9, was it? That would be way too. That would be cool. That would be way too weird.
I think it changed and morphed over time. Okay. I don't think there's any set number.
Yeah, the writing group, like with Lewis, Tolkien, Barfield,
Williams.
And actually Lewis's brother Warney, I think, was part of it too.
Yeah.
And I was going through and writing a little bit about each of the members, and I said, I think it's safe to say that without Tolkien, literature today would look very different, because we wouldn't have Lewis's books, which is a huge part of literature, and then we wouldn't have The Lord of the Rings, which essentially is probably more people read those books than I would say read. Well, the Chronicles of Narnia, I mean, I'm sure lots of people have read those.
They're considered much more masterpieces than anything Lewis wrote, I think. Although people consider in the areas of theology, Mere Christianity
Yeah.
and a couple of his books to be quite masterful.
But non-Christians consider Tolkien's writings masterful.
Yeah, right.
That's what I would say.
They're just considered high, phenomenal literature. Anyway, so yeah, I think that's true. I think one thing that Lewis brings up in The Four Loves that has always stuck with me, you should read it, is this sort of idea of a fellowship. Mm-hmm. Because there's a certain sadness to movies 2 and 3 in the fact that they all get scattered. Mm-hmm. So now Merry and Pippin are off, carried away by the orcs, and then you have Boromir who dies, and then you have Aragorn and the other two who are doing their thing, and they're meeting up with the Rohirrim, and they're tracking down the other two hobbits, and they're whatever. And then you have Frodo and Sam, who for the rest of the movie are off on their own. Yeah. For the rest of the trilogy. And they never that fellowship never comes back together. This is also very true to real life. Mm-hmm. Well, there are times where there is a group of friends, and like Lewis says, 2 friends, that's good. But when you have a group of friends, I'm sure he's thinking of the Inklings. I'm sure he's thinking of the Fellowship, in Tolkien's whatever. Although I don't know when exactly all of that was developed. And anyway, but.
Well, he would have known about the Fellowship.
He certainly would have, yeah. Especially if that's the first of the books.
Even if it hadn't been published yet, he would have known about it.
Right. But, he's sort of got this in his head, and writing in The Four Loves, he says, a group of friends is even better, because it certain people bring certain things out of certain other friends, and let's say you have 4, 5, 6, 7 people who are very knit together by whatever it is, their common passions. Man, there are certain facets of a person's personality you do not see unless they are with certain people. Yeah. I see this with my wife, for instance, with her family. Mm-hmm. She probably sees this with me when I'm with my brother or somebody I'm rarely with, but who we have there's a certain connection that we don't have with other people. Mm-hmm. There's a certain level of, maybe she would say in her honest moments, a level of stupidity and humor that I never attain unless I'm with him or a couple of people. It's just there's this fellowship sort of thing. Yeah. Where, I don't know, it's pretty rare, and it's pretty rare that it lasts. Yeah. See, we had that in Kuwait with several people. I mean, there was a group of people that I would say 10, 12 strong, that when they hung out, there was friendship on a different level than when 2 of us or 3 of us hung out. Mm-hmm. But then you all scatter to the 4 winds, and you're never going to have that again. Never. Mm-hmm. And we see that in the Fellowship. Even when they get back to real life, Boromir's gone. Frodo leaves, Bilbo leaves, and Gandalf leaves, right? Yeah. Does Gandalf leave with him? And
he does. Because he was actually...
Legolas leaves? I mean, it's just completely... Legolas doesn't leave?
No, he stays... I just was listening to someone talk about the characters after the Lord of the Rings stories. Legolas and Gimli actually, I think they went and reclaimed some dwarven lands or something. Okay. I don't know, and they brought... Because, how the reason they fight so much is because the elves and the dwarves didn't like each other. Sure. So there was a level of and they actually unified the 2 people groups, because not all the elves left. There were some people that didn't leave.
So those guys go do their thing. Aragorn's ruling in Gondor. 3 of the hobbits go back to the Shire, and probably would have struggled like Bilbo did when he came back with, after all this adventure, how can I go back to normal life? Mm-hmm. Well, again, that hits me right here, because I'm like, we've lived that too. We had 5 years of traipsing around the world, not carrying a ring to Mordor, if you will, but traveling, new cultures, new countries, new places, new sights, beauty, all this stuff. And then you move back to the Shire. Mm-hmm.
Well, Alaska's kind of like the Shire.
I mean, it's a somewhat idyllic life, and yet there can easily be... I mean, people, for the first 5 years we were home, there was constant question, do you miss the travel? Well, yeah, I miss the travel, but when you're traveling constantly, you miss other things too, and so it's a give and take. Yeah. It's a give and take, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I know I agree with you about how there's a sadness in the second and third movies when they're not all together, but it's kind of like, I think I kind of have mixed feelings about it, because in a way I loved when they were all together, but in a way I also like when they're split up, because then you get a chance to see their personalities and their friendships,
Yeah.
Then, I don't know, really bond. And then another thing I was going to say when you're talking about, like, certain aspects of your personality that are only brought up by certain people, and the level of stupidity and goofiness. Well, I have friends that, I guess, I've known them all since they were babies, because I'm 3 years older than the oldest in the siblings. And my mom will get so annoyed, so disgusted when we get together, because she's like, Kate, what's wrong with you? You've gotten so much better. I thought you were growing up, but she's given up now. But when I was probably 17 or 18, she's like, and you digress when we get together. We get together with them. You're laughing at farts and you're doing all this stuff. And I'm getting better, I swear, I'm getting better. We're still just a whole bunch of clowns. And I'm like, well, that's because we grew up together. Sometimes we revert back to our childhood, personalities or whatever. And and it's like, I go back to a lot of whatever, and I think you and Christy see aspects of my personality that, like, other people in my life would never see, ever, because...
Sure, and, there are certain people for all of us with whom we are sillier than we would be normally, or with whom we are, sometimes it's negative, sometimes it's a certain people group, group of people, group of former friends, that when you're together with them, they are going to encourage you to do negative stuff that you guys used to do. Let's say somebody gets back together when they're in college with their high school friends, and, hey, it's drinking, smoking, partying, blah, blah, blah. Other people are great to be around because, I think one of the greatest aspects of friendship, if you really want to get down to it, is good question asking. Both as a teacher and as a pastor and just as a person, I have always wanted to be, and sometimes I'm sure I'm too invasive, too personal, too whatever, with people that I don't know well enough, but it's their choice whether they want to answer the question or not. Nobody's forcing anybody. I have tried to make it a practice to ask good questions, and sometimes you don't even realize you're asking the right question. Like, perfect example of everything we're talking about was at your parents' 25th. Sitting around a table with Pete and Steph, Tess and Sterling, Tim and Denise, and Christy and me. And I mentioned something about Tim's mother, and he started talking about his mom. And that was one of the most delightful and hilarious conversations I've been in a long time.
I think I came in halfway through the conversation. I was just like, oh my goodness. You sent me into gales of laughter the point I can hardly talk all the time. So I was like, oh my goodness, Tim, thank you. It's so good to see you in pieces. It's great.
So Tim is a hilarious dude. And I just happened to ask this question, which set him on a track that led to a lot of fun. Do I take full credit for that? No, he was the one being funny. And then there's other people chiming in and the whole pulling the handkerchief out of the blouse and stuff. There's just so much, but that doesn't happen if you don't have the fellowship there. There's a whole bunch of people around that table. That was probably 8 or 9 people who are drawing things out of each other that maybe 2 or 4 of them wouldn't.
Yeah.
So, and then it's just more fun because you spread the hilarity further. So, I don't know. I just love all these examples from real life of exactly what happens in these books. That a group of friends can really even bring unique facets out of each other that just a one-on-one friendship might not. So
yeah, or I don't know. Maybe this isn't a perfect example, but I remember when I was working at a movie theater in Duluth when I was in college or whatever. It was slow, and we were standing around talking or whatever, and this one girl, I think I knew she was a Christian because she was she wore a cross necklace, she wore something that she had some kind of maybe
she suspected she might
be, and she said something about being her dad being evangelical, EV-free pastor, and she said, well, and I don't know if she knew I was Pentecostal or what, but she said something about, there's something about Pentecostalism that bothers her. And I said, well, what is it? Because, and And I think she may have knew because she's like, I don't want to offend you or whatever. And I said, well, what is it? No big deal. What is it? And she's like, well, something about how I don't like... No, she didn't say that. She said, the part of Pentecostal, she said, there's something about Pentecostalism that bothers me. And I said, oh, really? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, and this other coworker is like, woo, wait, like there's going to be a fight. And I said, don't
fight.
Yes. And she's like, and she just said something about how she doesn't like that sometimes Pentecostals can give off this vibe that you're not a Christian if you don't speak in tongues or something like that. And I said, I'm sorry about that. That bothers me too. Don't worry. That bothers me too. I'm a Pentecostal, but that bothers me. And I hate that because I don't speak in tongues. I know plenty of people in my church that don't speak in tongues and give gifts of tongues, and they're definitely Christians and they're definitely filled with the Spirit.
Right.
And it's like, it's annoying or whatever. And this guy says, oh, hold up, just this guy who had thought we were gonna have a fight and was excited about it. He said, okay, I just want to someone make clear right now. I'm an atheist and I don't want to have these conversations. We're just here to sell popcorn and pop, and that's all I want to talk about. And we're like, okay, whatever. And
I remember this story. So cool.
Yeah, we were we were out in the open, and a bunch of us we're college students. We're kind of loud, and we're like, and this guy comes up to the register, and I was like, oh crud, we're gonna get reported to the manager. We're gonna be in big trouble. I thought we were in rude or whatever. And he's like, hey, did I hear you say that you're an atheist or something? And the guy's like, yeah. And he says, well, I just want to tell you that I was an agnostic, and I was a Christian, and I was agnostic, but I'm back, or something like that. And they had this conversation about, I only half listened to the conversation, but I was just like, oh wow, that's so cool, I have goosebumps right now, or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's an example of how, and I mean, I have no idea, the movie theater got shut down because of COVID a week later. I don't work there anymore. I have no idea what's going on with those people, but you never know what the conversation...
Does the guy get witnessed to, basically, without the whole group? Mm-hmm. The conversation starts by the E-free girl picking on a facet of Pentecostalism she doesn't appreciate. It's a facet I don't appreciate either, and it's a facet that certain denominations, which we will not name, but... really push, have to speak in tongues, have to, fine, I'll fake it. Mm-hmm. Whatever you have to do, just do it.
Well, that same denomination, which we won't name, when pastors have to renew their license every year, they literally have to sign something that says, yes, in my ministry this year, I've given a chance for those who want to speak in tongues. And if they say that they haven't done ministry, right, if they answer no.
Well, and that's fine. I don't actually have a problem with that. Are we giving people opportunities? What we don't do enough here is in the 90s when I was growing up, we were praying over people to be baptized with the Holy Spirit a lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was a frequent thing up at the altar, laying hands on people. Mm-hmm. I think it's fine to give opportunity, but if a person is not given the gift of tongues, and not everyone is, Paul is pretty clear about that in 1 Corinthians 12. Why are we saying this is the gate? Mm-hmm. And if you do not cross over into the beautiful field of speaking in a prayer language, then you're not filled with the Holy Spirit, or we could never for sure say you are. Mm-hmm. And, again, I always talk about JV Christians. You just relegate a whole sincere group of people who love Jesus, who are seeking the infilling of the Holy Spirit, to second-rate JV Christians. Back to your conversation in the movie theater. If she doesn't say that, you don't respond with a loving response, not a defensive, but a loving response. This atheist doesn't jump in. He doesn't make the loud comment, and then the guy doesn't come up and say, it's all was that orchestrated by the Holy Spirit? Yeah. Mm-hmm. You bet. Yeah. Of course it was. And, your conversation and the guy coming up, all of it would have planted seeds in this dude's life. What happens to him, I don't know. But I have to trust that, okay, I'm going to plant, I'm going to scatter, scatter. And sometimes that is going to fall on some good soil, and the Holy Spirit's going to produce 30, 60, and 100-fold. Maybe the next conversation you have with that dude is in heaven. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
Like, that's just all because the sea-free girl is like, oh, Pentecostalism. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she wasn't being rude about it. She was really, like, she was polite. She was sincerely bothered.
I don't like this about it.
And I mean, if I had something, like, I don't know enough about the EV-free.
No.
But if there was something about it bothering me, I might have been saying, well, this kind of bothers me about it, but...
Who better to take it to than somebody who grew up in the church? And, I mean, if you're like... the Evangelical Free Church, can I just ask you a question about this? Because this bothers me.
Yeah, I was really glad that she brought it up.
I know. And if she doesn't bring it up, you don't respond, he doesn't say that, the guy doesn't hear it. It's this domino effect. And it's like, here, watch me. It's like the Holy Spirit. Watch me just pull the rug over this direction. I doubt he finished that conversation like dropping to his knees and giving his life to the Lord, but you plant seeds. Plant seeds, plant seeds, water seeds, plant seeds, water seeds, plant seeds, and once in a great while you get to pray with somebody.
Yeah, and the guy who had, come up to when he heard the comment, he was like, "Well, I'm not quite back at church yet. I'm trying to find a church or something like that." So I said, "Hey, I work at a church because here's the service times. You should come or something like that." So now, how does that look up? I don't know. I don't know how that looks because I honestly didn't take a good look at the guy. I don't know what he looked like because I was just so like, again, I was so caught up in, oh wow, Jesus, you're cool.
Yeah, right.
But it was just such a.
I think a friend is great. I think a group of friends, a fellowship of friends, if you will, is a real immense blessing, and a fellowship of friends that all believe in the friend and counselor, the Holy Spirit, is best of all. It's like,
well, I know. Yeah, so I think we had touched on, you said something about, well, you said you thought Legolas had gone to the Undying Lands too, and then you're like, well, and I said no, he stayed or whatever. And I said how he and Gimli they brought these two groups of Middle Earth, they're not people, I don't know what to call them, back together, these two groups back together. And anyway, so you had just touched on for a second about their relationship and how that was the comic relief of the series or whatever. So I don't know. But yeah, so what are some stuff about, is that the main thing you like about their friendship, or is there some other stuff?
I like how it's portrayed by Peter Jackson, and I don't, like I said, I don't know how true that is to how they are in the books. But
there's some of that changes. I'm just fine with them making. It doesn't bother me at all.
I like how he writes those two and their constant ribbing. What I like about it is you can tell that they have admiration for and appreciation for each other. They like getting at each other. They're like, people that I can really get on board with, because here they use teasing as, the sixth love language or whatever. Yeah. And I relate to that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, you have their, what is it, the line in, some of the best sarcastic humor, period, at Helm's Deep is like, you could have picked a better spot. What's happening out there? And then he just says, shall I describe it to you? Would you like me to find you a box?
Yeah. There are great lines between those two. He kills the elephant in the third one, and
that still only counts as one.
Right.
I like better at Helm's Deep, where they're like, where just as the orcs are starting to come up, Gimli's like, Legolas, 2 already! And he says, I'm on 17!
Yeah. It's like,
oh, I'm so pumped, you're not scoring me! Or whatever.
You're annoying. Yeah. You're gonna have to touch me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but don't tell the elf.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny stuff. The only thing I would have liked is if those two had larger parts sometimes in the movies, because especially the third one, I don't think they're really, that one focuses so much more on Aragorn, on Merry and Pippin really have a pretty big part in the last one, and sometimes those two get a little bit lost in the second and third movie.
Well, that's what I wish that they got. Well, that's why I said, Legolas is the main character that I wish had gotten more. Gimli too, but Legolas and Gimli are like, if I could pick characters to get more screen time, I'd like Legolas and Gimli, no question. Or they're talking about how it's all over Lord of the Rings fandoms right now. It's like they're going to make an Amazon original prequel series to Lord of the Rings, and they're going to talk about some of the second or third age stuff. And I'm like, if you have to make some stuff, make a sequel series about Legolas and Gimli, or give Legolas some more attention. That's why, even though I don't like what they did with him in The Hobbit, I'm not opposed. I've heard what they did with him in The Hobbit. I'm not opposed to giving him more screen time.
Peter Jackson right now, isn't he working on some huge just epic documentary on the Beatles. I thought I had heard that.
Well,
somewhere.
Peter Jackson isn't making the Amazon series. Somebody else is.
Oh, it'd be somebody else. Yeah, which, of course, then you get a totally different flavor. But
Peter Jackson owns Middle Earth. No one else should make Middle Earth.
Yeah.
But anyway, but yeah, I know it's like.
Yeah.
And I know we were talking. Well, I know we were talking about right again before we started filming about the idea of like how guys are like, no, I'm a man, I'm gonna be tough or whatever. I don't. Mm-hmm. You don't show affection. You don't show. Whatever, and I was watching a video where it was like, oh, the guys in Lord of the Rings just destroy that idea because they're like these tough, manly warriors or whatever, and even Legolas with his flowing golden locks that could look like a girl from behind. Sorry, it's just true. Orlando Bloom, we love you, but it's just true. Stop it. Anyway, crud, where was I going with this? Oh, I remember. So, one scene that I haven't seen any of the extended movies, but I've seen some of the clips from them or whatever, is there's the moment, after the Army of the Dead, because, they cut in the theatrical right from, don't they cut right from Aragorn going, what say you, will you fight for me? Right? And then they cut from that, and then we don't know what they decided to do until he shows up with them.
Jumps out of the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another epic shot, by the way. But
I don't know what they cut to right after that.
Yeah.
Faramir, maybe.
Yeah, but anyway, so one part that they leave out or whatever is, I don't remember what starts to happen, but there's basically like a skull avalanche or whatever, because the skull that they were stepping on all starts to fall or whatever, and they just run, they book it out of there or whatever. And then, Aragorn is very much like, even though he shows his emotions, he never really lets this, like, depression and discouragement get to him. And then but there's a point where he's watching, like, the black ships go by on the river, and then, like, I don't remember what it is, but he's like, oh my goodness, we're too late. And he just falls to his knees and just starts to, I don't know. I don't remember if it was weeping or whatever, and then Legolas just goes up and just goes like, and he just goes like this to him or whatever. I just think that's such an example of, like, I don't remember, but I like that part of the movie because it's like, the comfort of your friend or whatever too.
Yeah, I think the notion that real men are not supposed to be emotional is just absurd. I mean,
or affectionate or whatever.
Affectionate. Oh, they can't say I love you. They can't say they're proud. They can't whatever. Oh, that's weakness. That's so stupid. I don't know where people get that. You think of the great warrior poets, people like David. Mm-hmm. David, you talk about a guy who was emotional, affectionate, and definitely tough. Mm-hmm. All of that rolled into one. Mm-hmm. And I think when we see that, just like with Jesus, man, you talk about tough. There's a great poem by Ezra Pound called "The Ballad of the Goodly Fair," and it's basically just about what a wild, manly man's man Jesus was. Mm-hmm. Here's this guy who goes to the cross, for crying out loud. Like, how, get tougher than that. And yet, so affectionate, compassionate, loving. It's such a powerful combo. Mm-hmm. We all love it when we see it. So now to see I would say, there's toxic masculinity, yes, chauvinistic. Mm-hmm. Men are the best. They're stronger and better, and whatever, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Well, I'm not into that at all. I'm also not into let's make men super effeminate and wimpy, and somehow that's what men are supposed to be. Neither one is right. No. You err on both sides of the spectrum, and this whole notion of like, a man can just declare I'm a woman now, or should embrace all this effeminateness. Mm-hmm. No, neither one. Can we have warrior poets who know when the time is to show mercy and when the time is to pull out the sword and when the time is to embrace somebody or touch somebody in healing or whatever, or cry on somebody's shoulder? Both are needed. Both are in the heart of God. Mm-hmm. Both are in the hearts of men. So
it's just I don't know. Yeah.
So
that's true. And then I hate when this happens. I was gonna say something and then I forgot.
Well, I can be kind of long-winded, you know, so.
Yeah, you are.
My bad.
No, I'm long-winded too.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I think we've been going about an hour.
Yeah.
Probably ought to wrap this up.
Yeah.
These sessions, we probably should try to keep to like 20 or 30 minutes, huh?
Yeah.
For the interest or attention span of.
Yeah. Well, when we get on rabbit trails, if we call it the rabbit trails, I don't know how long the videos would be too, but
5 minutes.
Yeah. No, I'm kidding. But
anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yep.
So.
Anyway.
I like it.
I do too. All right. Anyway. Thank you.